Well. Accordingly, we are at the third battle of the series for Historia Civilis. He has coined this the most famous battle in history. I disagree. I disagree still. Um, yeah, we know what's going to happen. Let's see how he directs it. Well, let's jump right in. Glad you're here. Let's go.
The Battle of Cannae was the third and most decisive battle of the three major Italian engagements during the Second.
Yeah, like at a percentile, it's. I mean, they destroyed them on Lake Trasimene. So I think I forget. I mean, technically, I think Lake Trasimene, a whole legion, or basically gets out of there, um, or 6,000 men, so more than a legion. But at Cannae, I'm not sure how many survivors. There's like 80,000 engaged. Can't remember how many survivors. I know there's a ton taken prisoner though.
Second Punic War. This single event redefined Roman strategy for a generation and has fascinated generals ever since. If you look at my two previous videos, which are about the Battle of the Trebia River and the Battle of Lake Trasimene, you'll notice that these were instances where Hannibal clearly outsmarted his opponents. The Romans noticed this too, but they wouldn't have called it smarts, they would have called it trickery. They hated trickery. To the Romans, the idea...
It's so funny because it's so true. Because they're just like, why don't you play like it's like a gentleman's game, and they're not playing by the rules of engagement. They're not. It's hilarious.
The old battle took place on a flat surface with no obstacles around, where two armies could just come straight at each other and go at it. They had reason to feel this way. They had some of the best heavy infantry in the known world. To them, it was all about the strength and grit of head-to-head fighting. After losing two entire armies in what the Romans would have considered an unfair fight, they were determined to force a battle on their terms. In order to make this battle truly decisive, each consul was given two standard-sized armies. These four combined armies totaled an unprecedented 86,000 men. Just like we've seen before, they were mostly heavy infantry, with only 6,400 cavalry. As the Romans marched south to meet Hannibal, they deliberately kept to flat, open land. They knew that they had the numerical advantage, and didn't want to get sucked into another one of Hannibal's tricks. Hannibal's casualties from the previous battle had replaced themselves yet again, with new Gallic allies coming over to his side after his victory.
And like I said before in the last video, some time has passed since we got to this point. Hannibal, they've been playing cat and mouse for a little bit. They've been in the valley. They got encircled. The Fabian strategy's being used. Then you got like, I'm in charge this day, I'm in charge this day type thing. So there's a lot of time that's passed in between Lake Trasimene and Cannae, but but they're sieging Cannae now. They're taking they've taken garrison Cannae, but then they're outside of Cannae. There's just a lot of stuff happening.
Gauls now made up a third of his army. In total, he had 50,000 men, consisting of 40,000 infantry and 10,000 cavalry. Going into the battle, Rome's strategy was pretty straightforward. Remember how at the Trebia the Roman heavy infantry had unexpectedly broke through the Carthaginian center? And remember at Lake Trasimene how the Roman heavy infantry had managed to break through the Carthaginians blocking the road? Roman strategy leading up to this battle was fundamentally about repeating this success. Their plan was to break through the center of the Carthaginian line, and then overpower the two halves of the Carthaginian army with their superior numbers.
Okay, so like so their idea, quote unquote, is to do the same thing, but don't give chase and turn and squash. Okay.
To this end, Rome invested heavily in the center of their line. This had the added bonus of limiting their exposure to the elite Carthaginian cavalry who would be attacking on the wings.
It's so funny because it's literally almost what Carthage does to them.
This plan isn't rocket science or anything, but you have to admit, based on past experience, it does make some sense. The only obvious alternative to this strategy would have been to have the Romans use their superior numbers to widen the line beyond the point where the Carthaginians could match them. Then they could have focused on the Carthaginian wings rather than on the center. This is a much more conventional strategy, but the only problem with it is that it leaves the infantry on the wings extremely exposed. So instead, they decided to attack up the center. Finally, they were thinking ahead, trying to mitigate the enemy cavalry.
You basically have to guess based off intel where their strongest troops are and hope that you're right.
In order to fit even more men in the center of their line, the Romans formed up in large, narrow columns. Their cavalry was on the wings as usual, but their only job was to shield the infantry. The infantry on the wings' only job was to shield the infantry in the center. According to the plan, the center was where the battle would either be won or lost.
Yeah.
The Carthaginian strategy going into the battle was eerily the opposite of the Roman one. Hannibal wanted to have a very thin center, with his elite African and Spanish infantry stacked deep on the wings.
It's gonna fit like a key.
You'll see why in a minute. The Romans and the Carthaginians now formed up. The Romans left 10,000 of their 86,000 men to guard their camp, with the intent of launching a huge raid against the Carthaginian camp once the battle started. It seems to me to be a little overconfident to leave so many men behind, but
Overconfident when you haven't won a battle yet against Carthage. I don't think it's overconfident. I think it's just incompetent.
their thinking was that the Carthaginians were pretty poorly supplied, which meant that a well-placed raid could potentially weaken them beyond their ability to fight. Again, it seems overconfident, but at least they're thinking ahead. So, the remaining 76,000 Romans deployed in the formation I described earlier, with a river on their right. The Carthaginians deployed opposite them. Immediately, the Carthaginian cavalry charged the Romans hard on the right flank. The Roman cavalry was significantly outnumbered and outclassed, and received absolutely no support from the nearby infantry.
Dang.
It was a mess. Apparently somebody mistakenly gave the order to dismount just as the cavalry were charging in, leaving everybody totally unprepared to fight.
What? I didn't
In a matter of
remember
minutes,
that.
the Roman cavalry on the right were killed or driven off. One of the consuls may have been killed in this initial clash. It was a terrible way to start the battle.
Imagine your consul, one of your two supreme leaders, basically. In the first 5 minutes of the battle, 20, 30 minutes of the battle, is just gone.
It's worth noting here that the consuls were commanding from the cavalry on the wings, and not from a central location behind the infantry. For some reason, this really bothers me.
By a term of leadership and prowess and like given orders, yeah.
It's no wonder that the Romans were slow to adapt at the Trebia, and at Trasimene, and here at Cannae. Their consuls were more interested in playing soldier than commanding an army. My boy
Playing
Caesar
hero.
never would have pulled stuff like this. His age soldier than commanding an army. My boy Caesar never would have pulled stuff like this. His HQ was always right behind the thick of the fighting, with messengers coming and going at all times. Even Hannibal here at Cannae put himself right behind his center, where his line was thinnest, so that he could quickly move men around if he needed to. According
Honorable.
to their own plan, the Roman heavy infantry in the center were key to winning this battle. At least one consul should have been with them. It's idiocy, if you ask me. Anyway, the Roman horse on the right were in disarray. Then, the Carthaginian infantry advanced. For some reason, they formed a convex shape with their line as they advanced. This could have been a mistake, but it also could have been a way to exaggerate the weakness of their center. In other words, they could have been offering up an enticing target.
I mean, it feels like the choreography for this would have to be insane. Probably just happened.
While this was happening, the cavalry on the Roman left were playing cat and mouse with the Carthaginian cavalry. The
Oh yeah, they're playing hit and run.
Carthaginians kept on charging and retreating and charging and retreating, and neither side really wanted to fight. As the infantry from both armies finally met, the Romans set to work. Their heavy infantry in the center hit hard and began to push the enemy back. However, the Romans didn't know this, but Hannibal had ordered his center to deliberately give ground as needed. The Romans thought they were making progress, when actually they were walking right into a trap.
Jeez.
At this point, the Carthaginians near the river had finally finished with the last of their opponents. They turned and charged all the way across the field to help their buddies on the other side. The Romans on this side were now outnumbered 3 or 4 to 1, and made a hasty retreat. By
So cavalry is gone.
the way, and I hate to harp on this, with them went the other consul. We now have one consul dead and the other consul driven from the field. It kinda just makes me crazy. Meanwhile, the Roman infantry continued to advance right into the Carthaginian line. The center continued to slowly fall back as the wings held strong. Once the entire Roman line was fully committed, the Carthaginian infantry on the wings suddenly pivoted and charged inward. Simultaneously, the Carthaginian cavalry, free from any opposition, charged the Roman rear. Do you see this?
Insane.
It's a disaster. The Romans were now being squeezed from all directions and lost all cohesion. The army was now just a confused mess of humanity, pressed shoulder to shoulder with no room to fight. Now the battle was more like a mass execution. Of the 86,000 Romans, only 3,400 would escape. The 10,000 men
So it is way worse than Lake Trasimene on a scale. Oh my.
left behind at the Roman camp would be captured, and everybody else would be killed. The Carthaginians, on the other hand, lost only 8,000 total. If you're into kill-death ratios, that's 10 to 1. I cannot overstate how significant this loss was. It should have brought the state to its knees.
We saw the same thing in the First Punic War, where they kept losing all their ships at sea, and they just kept rebuilding the fleet.
There are estimates that Rome lost 20% of its adult male population on that day.
Yeah.
To put that in some context, in World War I, Germany lost 6% of its adult male population over the
This was almost 3x that.
course of 4 years. It's so awful, it's hard to imagine how they dealt with the loss. Yet somehow, miraculously, they carried on. Even more miraculously, after 13 long, hard years, Rome would actually win the war.
Yeah, but it was a disaster. Like, Hannibal was best in class in this entire war. People will say Scipio, but promise you, Scipio did get the best of Hannibal at Zama, but that is he was almost playing the war, Hannibal's art of war at that point, the tactics. I mean, he literally copied a Hannibal. And I'm not trying to be a Hannibal fanboy, but I'm just looking at the stats here. Obviously, Hannibal lost the war, but really Carthage lost the war. Hannibal participated in that, and if he had more support versus all the people that quote unquote needed support, then he would have had more success because he would have had an opportunity to use resources to his advantage. I mean, with barely any resources that he ever got from the state of Carthage, he was able to recruit, do the logistics, and win battles seems almost single-handedly. So if Iberia stopped getting all the resources and Italia did, who knows what would happen. If he marched on Rome, things would be way. He had an opportunity like 2 or 3 times and did not do that. Now, like I said in a series or so before, I think he wanted a post. He wanted to subdue Rome so bad, maybe to create him as a vassal state for Carthage, or eventually be able to use Rome as a provincial capital, maybe of Carthage or something like that. I don't think he wanted to burn it down. I think he respected the city, but not the people. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. This was a fun Historia Civilis series. Let me know what you guys think. I'm not sure if we have too much more Historia Civilis left in his catalog. He has a video coming live. Probably we'll watch it in the end of August 2025. But until then, maybe not too much Historia Civilis. I'll see if there's other videos within his catalog. But until next time, peace out. Bye-bye.